For a brief moment, I actually thought that Masuzoe Youichi Asamade Famicom was a stealth sequel to the recent Famicom game Business Wars, the adventure game about corporate mergers. Then I remembered they're from different companies, it's just that they somehow both decided to do almost the same game. Masuzoe Youichi is a bit of an interesting figure. At the time of the game's release, he was a political commentator, head of an economic think tank, and regular guest on Japanese television to talk about current affairs. Then in 2001, he won a seat in Parliament, and in 2014 he became the governor of Tokyo. He resigned 2 years later after a scandal involving misappropriation of funds. So he was a bit of a weird choice to be the frontman for a Famicom game. That scandal actually spiked the price for this game, which was already relatively rare, especially since the manual had some relevant comments from Masuzoe himself. Confusing public and private matters is a source of failure. Think about who is paying for something. There's no freedom for a man who can't even pay with his own money. A man who can't distinguish between business and his own pleasure is worthless. The claim is that Masuzoe supervised the development of the game, though I always take that kind of thing when it comes to celebrity endorsements of a game with a grain of salt. He appears in the game, but he's not the main character. He gives an introduction, and then regularly turns up to quiz you on business practices. Asamade Famicom is an adventure game, and you play as Fujisawa Kazuto, a manager with Coconut Trading Company. His boss fell mysteriously ill in the midst of a land acquisition project, so now it's Fujisawa's job to close the deal. And to do that, you'll have to negotiate with various people, get your subordinates on tasks, and engage in a bit of sexual harassment. They actually have multiple shots like that in the game too. The interface is icon-driven, but they're still the same verbs. There are 9 different commands, and you'll have to tap right on the D-pad to access the final 3 of those. You can look, examine, go, call someone over, talk to them, ask about topics, take things, use them, or get a password. This is one of those games where which verb you have to use isn't always clear, so you just try everything repeatedly until the game lets you continue. Sometimes you have to use things to take them, for example. Or you'll have to alternate between examining the environment and chatting with people, even though you really don't get any extra information out of examining. The between-chapter quizzes aren't really great either. It's an entire 20 questions on business for you. And apparently it doesn't block your progress if you screw this up. Hitting the A button here just cycles the pages of the question. You have to hit start to advance to the point where you can enter an answer. The questions don't seem to be exactly top tier either, though part of that might be due to how a lot of the questions come down to what does this English loanword mean. On release, Masuzoe Youichi Asamade Famicom sold pretty poorly. For some reason, kids were just kind of turned off by this one. But thanks to Masuzoe, it has gained quite a bit of infamy over the years, and cartridge-only copies will cost you about 6,000 yen these days. Though from what I could tell, nobody really seems fond of the game, even now that it's well known. Remember that in 1992, Japan was well into the 3rd year of an economic collapse that continues to this day. An adventure game about a big corporation having a land acquisition project is just tonally wrong for 1992. And as an adventure game, it really didn't bring anything special to the table. Masuzoe Youichi Asamade Famicom winds up being the answer to a trivia question, not a game that anyone would want to play.